Grab a square piece of paper, draw a line from one corner to the other, and you've just drawn a length that once threw a religious order into chaos. Around 500 BCE, a religious brotherhood in southern Italy believed they had figured out the entire universe. They argued that everything, from the shapes on Earth to the stars in the sky, was built on whole numbers and simple ratios, with absolutely no exceptions. But when one of their own members looked closely at that simple diagonal line, he found a length that broke their rule completely. According to one famous legend, his discovery didn't earn him a medal, it got him thrown off a boat. But long before this legendary conflict, humans had already figured out how to calculate this diagonal with remarkable accuracy. Nearly 4,000 years ago, Babylonian scribes recorded the square root of 2 to 6 decimal places on a clay tablet. That particular tablet was likely a student exercise copied from a reference table. But other tablets from the same period show that Babylonian mathematicians knew a remarkably simple iterative method, capable of producing approximations just like it. To find the square root of 2, you start with a guess, say 1. Then divide 2 by your guess. 2 divided by 1 is 2. Now take the average of your guess and that result. The average of 1 and 2 is 1.5. That average becomes your new guess. Now repeat the process. 2 divided by 1.5 is 1.333. Take the average of 1.5 and 1.333. You get 1.4166. But why does this averaging trick work at all? Think of it geometrically. If you want to find the square root of 2, you're looking for a square with an area of exactly 2. Start with a guess. Call it G. Now draw a rectangle with one side equal to G. To keep the area equal to 2, the other side must be 2 divided by G. If your guess is too large, the other side will be too small. If your guess is too small, the other side will be too large. The true square root of 2 is always trapped somewhere between them. Now, take the average of those two sides. That average sits right in the middle. It becomes your next estimate, transforming the rectangle into a shape that's much closer to a perfect square. Repeat the process, and the two sides squeeze closer and closer together, rapidly closing in on a perfect square. You can see this speed in the numbers themselves. Our first guess was 1.5. Our second guess, 1.4166, is already much closer. By the third step, the average is 1.414215, correct to 5 decimal places. And by the fourth step, we reach 9 correct decimal places, 1.41421356. We aren't gaining one digit at a time. The number of correct decimal places is roughly doubling with every single step. This is quadratic convergence, one of the fastest algorithms ever discovered, and modern computers still use a variation of it to calculate square roots today. For the Babylonians, this was simply a useful calculation. For the Pythagoreans, it became something far more dangerous. This group was called the Pythagoreans, named after their founder, Pythagoras, who settled in the city of Croton. But this wasn't a math club. It was closer to a religious order. Its members took vows, followed strict rules, including a ban on eating beans, and believed the soul transmigrated into new bodies after death. At the center of their world sat one core belief: that everything, quite literally, is number. They believed that whole numbers and the ratios between them were the actual building blocks of reality. If you pluck a string and then pluck exactly half of it, the second note sounds exactly 1 octave higher. Pluck 2/3 of the string and you get a perfect fifth. They tested this on a single-stringed instrument called a monochord, and they found that the sounds our ears find beautiful are governed by remarkably simple ratios: 2 to 1, 3 to 2, 4 to 3. If music obeyed whole numbers this perfectly, why wouldn't everything else? They extended this idea far beyond music. The Pythagoreans believed the entire cosmos was built on the same simple ratios. The planets themselves moved in perfect harmony, a silent symphony they called the music of the spheres. Their worldview was captured by a sacred symbol, the tetractys, a triangle of 10 dots, arranged in rows of 1, 2, 3, and 4. Add those rows together, and you get 10. To the Pythagoreans, 10 represented the complete order of the universe. In that universe, a number was always a count of whole objects, and fractions were simply ratios, relationships between two whole counts. They believed that given any two lengths, you could always find a small enough unit that measured both exactly, a whole number of times. Anything that couldn't be measured that way was called allegon, a word meaning both unspeakable and without ratio. To them, the universe was built on order and limit. The opposite, the unlimited, represented chaos. They were certain nothing in geometry could ever be allegon, and they were wrong. The crisis began with the simplest geometric shape, a square with a side length of exactly 1. According to the Pythagorean theorem, the square of the diagonal equals the sum of the squares of the two sides. 1 squared plus 1 squared is 2. So the square of the diagonal must be 2, which means the diagonal itself is the square root of 2. And that raised a troubling question. Could this length be written as a simple fraction of two whole numbers? A member of the Brotherhood, named Hippasus of Metapontum, set out to answer it. What happened to him next depends entirely on which ancient source you trust. One account claims the Pythagoreans expelled him and even built him a tomb while he was still alive, declaring him symbolically dead to the order. Another account, recorded by Iamblichus, claims Hippasus drowned at sea, either as a punishment ordered by the Brotherhood or as divine retribution for revealing secrets that should have remained hidden. Modern historians are skeptical of the drowning story. They see it more as a parable. The man who exposed formless chaos to the world was fittingly swallowed by the sea, the ultimate symbol of chaos to the ancient Greeks. Whether Hippasus was actually murdered or simply exiled, the discovery itself could not be buried. What exactly did Hippasus prove that was so dangerous? To understand the proof, start by assuming the opposite of what we're trying to show. Assume the square root of 2 can be written as a fraction, a over b, and assume that fraction is already in its simplest form, meaning a and b share no common factors, so they cannot both be even. Now square both sides. You get 2 equals the square of a divided by the square of b. Rearrange the equation and you get the square of a equals 2 times the square of b. That tells us something important. Because the square of a is exactly twice another whole number. It must be even. And there's only one way for that to happen. The square of an odd number is always odd. 3 squared is 9. 5 squared is 25. So if the square is even, the original number must also be even, which means a itself must be even. If a is even, we can write it as 2 times another integer. Let's call that integer c. So a becomes 2c. Now substitute that back into the equation. The square of 2c equals 2 times the square of b. Expand the left side, and you get 4 times the square of c equals 2 times the square of b. Now divide both sides by 2. 2 times the square of c equals the square of b. Notice what happened. We've arrived at exactly the same relationship as before. The square of b is twice another whole number, so the square of b must be even, which means b itself must also be even. But that's impossible. We began by assuming the fraction was already in its simplest form, that a and b shared no common factors. Yet the mathematics has forced both of them to be even, which means they both share a factor of 2. That's the contradiction. So our original assumption must be false. The square root of 2 cannot be written as the ratio of 2 whole numbers. No matter how far you search through the infinite expanse of the integers, it simply isn't there. This is one of the earliest surviving complete proofs by contradiction, and it represented a completely new way of finding truth. Nobody measured a physical square. Nobody drew finer and finer grids, hoping to spot a pattern. Instead, the proof begins by assuming the impossible is true. Then it lets the logic move forward until the assumption collapses under its own weight. This technique is called Reductio ad absurdum, and it became one of the most powerful tools in mathematics. Assume a false premise, follow the logic, watch the entire structure tear itself apart, leaving only the truth standing. In their desperate attempt to bury the diagonal, the Pythagoreans accidentally gave mathematics one of its sharpest weapons. But while the truth was preserved, Hippasus's discovery left Greek mathematics in complete disarray. Their entire theory of proportion, from similar triangles to scaling shapes, rested on one assumption, that any 2 lengths could always be compared using whole numbers. When that assumption failed, the very foundations of Greek geometry were suddenly in doubt. For nearly 2 centuries, Greek mathematicians had no way to rebuild their theory of proportion. Then, Eudoxus found a way. Eudoxus didn't try to force irrational lengths into numbers. He bypassed the problem entirely. Instead of assigning a numerical value, he compared ratios directly. By scaling both ratios with whole numbers, he could determine whether they were equal, without ever having to define what the square root of 2 actually was. This bypassed fractions entirely, providing an airtight way to compare irrational ratios with any other ratio. The method saved Greek geometry, and it eventually became the foundation of Book 5 of Euclid's Elements. Students studied it for the next 2,000 years. But Eudoxus's idea didn't end there. Its logic was so far ahead of its time that it echoed across millennia. In 1872, the German mathematician Richard was searching for a rigorous definition of irrational numbers. His solution was to split the rational numbers into 2 groups: everything smaller than the irrational value and everything larger. When mathematicians compared Dedekind's work With Eudoxus's ancient theory, they realized something remarkable. They were doing exactly the same thing. Different centuries, different notation, the same underlying idea. You might expect a number this disruptive to remain locked away in the history of mathematics, but in reality, it's hiding in plain sight, inside an object you probably use every day. Consider a standard sheet of A4 paper. Fold it exactly in half along its short side. You now have two smaller rectangles. Here's the remarkable part. Each of those smaller sheets has exactly the same proportions as the original. That only works for one specific ratio between the long side and the short side. Square root of 2. When you cut a sheet with that ratio in half, the square root of 2 cancels out perfectly, leaving the smaller sheet with exactly the same proportions as the original. That's why standard paper can shrink to A5 or grow to A3 without stretching, warping the margins, or cropping the page. A global standard, adopted in the 20th century, still runs on the very ratio that once threw a religious order into chaos. In the end, the diagonal of a square never changed. It was never secretly waiting to be expressed as a simple fraction by a clever mathematician. What changed was our understanding of what a number could be. Before Hippasus, numbers were counts of whole things. After him, mathematics had to make room for an entirely new kind of number, a length you can draw in a fraction of a second, but one that no fraction of whole numbers can ever equal. The Pythagoreans wanted to fit the entire universe inside the neat box of whole numbers. The diagonal of their own sacred square proved that reality is always larger than the systems we build to contain it.